Hola, Podcast Nation. It's your girl, Candidly Kristen, and this is The Candid Shop. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so on this episode, we will be discussing the sensitive subject of sexual assault and child sexual abuse. And with that being said, I need to add a content trigger warning here. This episode will include discussions about sexual assault and child sexual abuse. I acknowledge that this content may be difficult for some listeners, so please use your discretion. I encourage you to care for your safety and well being and reach out for help if you need it. Joining me for this important discussion are two women who bring their lived and professional experiences to this conversation. Monaye Etana, author of No Longer Bound, a book based on her life's journey to healing from abandonment, child sexual abuse, and assault, and the founder of the Grief Path LLC, which provides grief recovery services for grievers seeking healing. Also joining me is Krista Fee, author, international speaker, corporate program developer, healing guide, and founder slash president of Battle to Be. Welcome, 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 ladies, to the Candid Shop. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So I pulled a few stats. I think the way that we're going to this will kind of flow is we'll talk first about rape, sexual assault, then we'll move to a little bit of a conversation about consent, and we'll end with child assault. And so these are the stats. Every 68 seconds, another American is sexually assaulted. One out of every six American women has been the victim of an attempted or completed rape in her lifetime. 14.8% completed, 2.8% attempted. About 3% of American men, or 1 in 33, have experienced an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. 48% of these sexual assaults or rapes were performed while the person was sleeping or performing some activity at home. 29% were traveling to and from work or school or traveling to shop or run errands. 12% while they were working, 7% while they were attending school, and then there's 5% they were doing an unknown or other activity. And I believe these stats are pulled from just the United States, not abroad. So it's limited in that respect. So, ladies, we talked before, and I found a definition that says rape is a form of sexual assault, but not all sexual assault is rape. For the Uniform Crime Reports, the FBI defines rape as penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina. Is that an accurate definition to each of you? And Krista, you can go first.
Any penetration or anal also counts as rape, especially when we're in the context of male rape.
I agree. And Monaye, how about you?
I completely agree as well.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what the object of penetration is,
Right.
but once that threshold has been, met, it's what it is.
Right. I agree. I agree that the definition is a little lacking. But if each of you in turn, and I guess we'll start with Monaye, could just briefly share your stories so that my listeners can understand your lived experience as we move to talk about some more about sexual assault and rape.
Yes. So in your intro about me, you mentioned that I had dealt with abandonment. So I am a child survivor of parental suicide, starting when I was 3 years old, almost four, about 2 days before my fourth birthday. My mother committed suicide. So that started my road to abandonment. There were other issues, of course, within different relationships. From 8 to 12, I was abused by a distant family member, and that impacted me, in many ways. I was seeking love in all the wrong places
Hmm.
with guys, my emotional stability. I was insecure, my self-worth was questioned. And then many years after I had children, I was on a date with someone I had been, dating for about a month or so. We'd been alone before, and out of the blue, I was raped at gunpoint. And,
Wow.
it totally destroyed my life. So many coping mechanisms that I, took on: emotional eating, just all kind of stuff that did not help me, self-sabotaging behavior. So it has definitely been a journey
Okay.
to rediscovery.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you're here. I certainly
Thank
am
you.
glad that you found your way.
Yes.
And Krista,
Yeah, we kind of have a little bit of similarities in the context that, like many people who are abused, it tends to happen multiple times throughout a lifetime. So I was also a familial childhood abuse, and in my teenage years was raped by a fellow high school student, and then I was a victim of domestic violence in my home. And we don't very often talk about marital rape as being a thing,
hmm
but that was my my lived experience, and it affected me very much the same way as the other previous experiences. It's non-consensual is non-consensual.
yes. Okay. Well, we three share sexual assault in common. I am an adult survivor of childhood sexual assault and abuse from a family member. So, and the road to wellness took me through drug addiction and drinking too much, and from hypersexuality to non-sexuality. It has been a journey, but I'm 54 now, so, and I'm always healing, always looking to heal, always trying to find better ways to be. So we have that in common. So what would you say, and this question goes to the both of you, is the most important thing for people to know about sexual assault and rape? Like if you had to pick one thing, and either you can go first.
I think the most important thing is to recognize that there is a possibility of healing, that it doesn't have to define us
hmm
forever. It doesn't have to be who we are,
Okay.
that we can never get over it per se, but that it's not all there is.
Right. I like that. And Monet?
Yes, I agree. I feel like for as, traumatic as those things are, everybody has their own path to healing, and healing is not linear.
Right.
It's not to say that once you get to a certain point, you're never
Mm,
going to have triggers, you're never going to have little things that remind you. But I think it's all about knowing how to manage your triggers and understanding that you are not what happened to you. That's
mhm.
not your identity. And that you just have to, do the best you can to keep moving
Okay. I
because
agree.
it's not easy.
No, it's not. And it never ends really. I mean, there's always
Hmm.
something on TV, something on the radio, something you perceive that you see maybe with a
Right.
friend and her partner or something, and it's like, okay. So,
Hmm.
what suggestions do you two have to make it safer, easier, more comfortable for victims to come forward and report, to tell their stories, to try to get justice if that's possible? Because it always seems that in cases of rape, date rape, just rape by a stranger, the victim is often, air quotes, put on trial. So, what suggestions do you have to make that less so?
I think outside of the social and cultural change that needs to happen, the thing that we can do right now without all of the social change is surround yourself with a support team, surround yourself with people that you love and trust,
hmm
and have them stand by you throughout. You can't do it alone, and you shouldn't have to do it alone.
Agreed. And Monet?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a thing such as victim blaming, whether intentional or unintentional. Often it's, well, what were the circumstances and what
hmm
was she doing or what was he doing? And I think if people are educated more, and they know that they have a safe place to go without judgment.
hmm
And then, like Krista said, having people within their circle that they know that they can lean on for support, then they may be more likely to come forward. But most people are often afraid of that because
hmm
of the victim blaming.
Yeah.
So
and the stigma. So, what should a woman do if she has been the victim of sexual assault, be it a husband, a stranger, or she's on a date? What should her steps be? Because the immediate reaction, right, is to go home and shower, to wash and scrub until your skin is about to fall off because you just want to get rid of the feeling, the scent, the touch, whatever. But what should women do in the aftermath of a sexual assault or rape?
I think looking back at my particular situation, I didn't want anyone to know. I just thought about surviving because my children and I were threatened. So I
Mhm.
did not do all of the things that I probably should have. I didn't call the police. I didn't go to the hospital to be tested. Like I kept it
Okay.
a secret for years. But you should definitely not shower because there's evidence.
Yeah.
You should report it. You should have someone there to support you.
Yes.
And you have to also not blame yourself, no matter
Mhm.
what the situation was, because you are the victim and
Exactly.
no one deserves to be violated.
No, I agree. And Krista?
Yeah, in a perfect world, we would say, of course, immediately get to the hospital,
Right.
immediately report it, because when everything is fresh in your mind, you're going to do the best at recalling the details.
Mhm.
You're going to get, if it's a stranger situation, you're going to have the best chance of them being caught. If it's not a stranger situation, there may be something that can be done to keep them away from you, to keep you safe.
Right.
If you don't reach out, you can't be protected.
Okay. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the way law enforcement handles rape and sexual assault cases. How can that be better? I watch a lot of TV shows and, there's SVUs and sexual victims units or violence units. I don't know what the acronym exactly stands for, but often there's a lot of questioning, a lot of not victim blaming, but kind of the eyebrows are up, especially if the person is perhaps a drug user or something like that. So, what are some ways that law enforcement can do better by victims?
I would love to see interview rooms that are specifically for that, so
Hmm.
that you're not in holding areas and you're
Right.
not in interrogation rooms that feel like you've done something wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
Always having a female present if the victim is a female,
Yes.
always having other people in the room because you're feeling very vulnerable at
Right.
that point in time.
Okay. Those
Yeah,
are great suggestions.
yeah, I
Mo-
agree with that.
okay, Monet,
Um,
anything to add?
just better training. I just feel like sometimes there's not a specific training for that type of crime. So a lot of times, and it's a generalization, but because
Hmm.
everybody's different, but
Yeah.
sometimes the more you see those types of things, you can get desensitized and,
Uh-huh.
you know, oh, this is just like, the last one, or, you kind of lose that because you are
Right.
not personally involved. And
Right.
so I just think it could be more training, sensitivity training, and just more better protocols on how to
Yeah,
handle that.
I agree. And so what do you guys think about the current punishments that are out there for offenders? Do you think they're effective? Do you think jail is enough or should it be jail plus some kind of treatment? What ways is the punishment working and in what ways is it not?
Sentencing is very light.
Okay.
Speaking entirely of the United States, but
o-
sentencing is way too light, leaving very little consequence. I think
Okay.
we see really high statistics suggesting reoffense is a big problem,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not doing anything about that.
Right.
And that goes through really the whole criminal justice system, but especially when you're talking about violent crime and sexual assault, that we need to do something to keep that from reoccurring. And whether that's some kind of re-education or some kind of mental health hospital type place where people go afterwards.
Right. Okay. And what do
um,
you think about the registry, the sex offender registry? Is that at all effective or a deterrent to think, oh, if I, this, I might have to go on the registry and not follow me around. And is it effective?
I don't think so. I
No.
don't think it's effective at all. I think that when you are a sexual offender, I really don't think that they can be rehabilitated. I don't think that treatment works. I think because it's something that's deep on the inside of you. So say you go to prison for, 40 years
Hmm.
and you get out, then you're going to reoffend at some
Okay.
point. So I like Krista said, I don't believe that the sentencing is strict. Honestly, I don't know what the fix is for it.
Right. Right. Because I was thinking maybe some kind of treatment to get to the root of why people offend, and is there something chemically in their brain, or I don't think I'll ever understand what makes somebody think that it's okay to impose their self in that way on another person. I've heard often that rape is not about the sex, it's about the power and
Power.
control.
Hmm.
So maybe that's part of it. I'm not sure, but I don't
And
think
a
it's
lot of
okay.
times they were abused in some way
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
had a particular type of upbringing.
So do you think that in those situations we should treat those offenders differently because they started as victims, or the minute they went from victim to offender they lost that right to that grace and empathy from?
I think compassion is still allowed. It doesn't change that they're responsible for what they've done and that there should be justice or punishment for that. Having compassion for what occurred in their lives doesn't
Right.
erase their
Mhm.
responsibility.
Right.
Okay. Agreed.
Yep.
I like the way
Perfectly
you put that.
said. Yeah.
Yep, that was well said, Krista. Thank you.
Hmm.
So, what impact do you feel like now with the just explosion of social media and a trillion apps where people can connect in real time with other people? What kind of impact do you think that has had, will have on the proliferation of these kinds of crimes against women and men?
I think it drastically increases vulnerability.
Mhm.
We have a false sense of knowing people that we don't actually know.
Yeah, yeah,
And you can be anything you want to be online. So,
yeah,
we have adults catfishing kids. We have just, you could be anyone
yep,
and nobody knows who they're talking to.
yep.
Yeah, I actually, one of the organizations that I'm involved in for child trafficking, we had an event Friday night at a elementary school to talk to the parents about all of these apps.
Mhm,
We had a booth set up, and as the parents would come around, some with their kids, some without. We'd ask the kids, "Do you recognize all these apps?" And 9 times out of 10, all of them did.
mhm,
And these are the ways, especially now since the pandemic, when everybody's home or was home and all on their phones and everything. These are the entryways
mhm,
to our children. And
yeah,
like, Krista said, you can be whoever you want to be online. And it only takes 8 days from the initial conversation to convince our kids to send a photo or a meetup or something like that. And I
wow.
don't know, it's
8 days?
8 days. Yeah.
And
Wow.
online video games are also a very big risk factor.
Yeah.
Really? Because of the chat features?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting. So that was a great segue into the child abuse and assault. There are different statistics for that. And so the majority of child victims are aged 12 to 17. Of victims under the age of 18, 34% of victims of sexual assault and rape are under age 12, and 66% of victims of sexual assault and rape are aged 12 to 17. Every 9 minutes, government authorities respond to another report of child sexual abuse, and 93% of child sexual assault victims know the perpetrator, including family members, members of their faith community, coaches, teachers, and other air quotes helping professionals. That's a scary stat to me. 93% know their victims. So that means only 7% are, I guess, stranger type rate. We're always harping on our kids about stranger danger and don't talk to this person, you don't know them. But the data is saying that you should probably be talking to them about everybody,
Yeah.
including family members. So,
Uncle Bobby. Yeah.
Uncle,
It's
too
who has
many.
access.
Yeah, yeah.
hmm
So, ladies, give me some forms of non obvious child sexual abuse that parents should be aware of and probably are not. I mean, we know the obvious ones, but what are some forms that may not be obvious to parents that they should know about?
I would say avoiding eye contact if their behavior has changed, if they're anxious, if they are fearful of going, to a certain place or being around certain people, they don't want to be touched in what may be seemingly a normal, quote unquote, normal way. Their grades drop. I mean, it's sometimes the smallest things. And so I think you just have to really, really, really be in tune
Hmm.
to your child.
Absolutely.
The alternate can also happen.
Right.
They actually become really attached to someone. They seem like they have a really loving relationship. There's a lot of touch and affection. They'll say things like, "You're my special girl," just want to
Yeah.
spend a lot of time with the child.
Yeah.
And the child isn't necessarily going to show that there's signs of there being anything wrong, because sometimes in the younger kids, they don't even recognize that there's anything wrong.
Right.
They feel
Right.
loved and taken care of, and they don't recognize the danger and the damage that's being done.
That's true.
Agreed. That's true. So, guys, what age to you is the best age or the earliest that you should start to discuss with your children about rape and child sexual abuse? And the part two to that is, what are some ways that parents who are super uncomfortable even broaching the subject, what are some conversation starters? Now, this isn't a scenario where the child is not exhibiting any signs or giving any warning signs, but because you don't want your kid to be unaware, you want to have, a talk.
I think it begins as soon as children are aware of their own parts. As soon as they start, you can
I
tell
agree.
when, they're like 2 or 3 and they
Yeah.
start, "Oh, look, what's this?"
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's an opportunity to say that that's yours, and,
Hmm.
make sure that they understand that no one should be touching that other than the people that should be.
Yep. I agree. And Monet?
Yeah, I think it definitely has to be age appropriate. It definitely begins, with making sure that the kids understand the proper name for their
Mm.
body parts,
Yes.
not these nicknames. And
Yeah.
oh, I can think back to so much of that,
Yes, yes. The
you
purse and
know.
all that.
Yeah, the pocketbook. But yeah, I just think that, whatever age you start, you can just gradually build upon that.
Okay. Okay. And say I'm an adult and I have an adult cousin or an uncle or somebody that's around a lot. What can an adult say to another adult when they feel that there are red flags, that they may be a little too interested or a perpetrator or potential perpetrator? How does that conversation happen?
I've often been told in my training that it's not usually a good idea for adults
Oh,
to confront the other adults.
okay.
If there is suspicion, it should just be reported.
Okay.
This is where we get the relation who grabs the kid and runs.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Got it. That's
Mhm.
interesting. Thank you for that. And Monet, do you agree or do you think another adult should be having a conversation or you should just one remove your that person from access and report
You
them or
know, with my personality, I would probably say something to them. But I think that it could be a combination of those things,
Mhm.
whether you choose to say something or not. But definitely, if you have that unction that something isn't right,
Yeah.
I'm going to keep my child away from you,
Yeah.
and, reporting, suspicious behavior definitely is key as well.
Okay. So, can you tell me and my listeners what should a parent do when they think that their child has been or is being abused and the child is showing signs? What are their steps? And either one of you can go.
They need to report it.
Okay.
They need to make sure that their child understands that it's not his or her fault,
Okay.
that they are there for them, that, communication is open, that they are loved. They need to reaffirm
Hmm.
their child because oftentimes the child isn't believed in many cases. And that's just unbelievable to me.
Yeah. And Krista?
Yeah, that was where I was going to go, is just show them that no matter what they say, you believe them, and no matter what they say, you can't show the emotional devastation. You can't show that you're upset, that you're angry, that you're freaked out. You
Right.
have to be in those moments of disclosure. You have to be strong for your child and support them so that they can tell their story, because as soon as you freak out, they close down and they
Right.
feel like it's their fault and they
Right.
hurt you and they disappointed you.
Right.
And that's
Right.
very dangerous for them.
Right.
Agreed. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So, in cases where a child has been assaulted, abused in a sexual manner, and there's a case being built against the perpetrator, should the child testify like in open court, or is that age dependent? Is that good for them or healthy for them to face their accuser, or what are your thoughts on that part of it?
Well, that's very case specific.
Okay.
Age, personality,
Hmm.
their attitude about the disclosure.
Okay.
Do they want to go to court? Are they angry and they want to take care of it and they want to tell their story?
Hmm.
Or are they shy and scared and it will be re-traumatizing for them?
Right, right. 'Cause that was my thought, that that's a little rough
Yeah.
for a child, even a 12 to 17-year-old, to have to relive that.
Hmm.
There has to be a way that cases can be brought and tried without that having to be a part of it. I
Right.
mean, naturally, they have to, it can be done on paper in judges' chambers or with someone else away from the actual court to take their statement or their deposition or whatever. I just don't think having to have them walk past the person that hurt them is a healthy thing, even if
Hmm.
they are like a super strong kid that seems to be able to handle it. So I agree with that. So I want to talk just a little bit about consent in terms of adults. What ways can the issue of consent as it relates to sexual activity between adults in this case be made clearer and not so gray? Like, I thought she consented at first. I wasn't sure. You know what I mean? Like the consent just seems to be a super gray area.
I think consent is a gray area
Hmm.
because we have so many circumstances where consent is given, and then as women, we're taught to just give people what they want. So we don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So we may not want to, and we may kind of close down a little bit. We may kind of push someone away, but without actually stopping and saying, look, no, this is my body and we're done here.
Right.
We're creating mixed signals and they're not reading them. Men haven't been taught to read the subtlety of what's going on. So it's both parties in that instant where we need to be able to stand up for ourselves and be very clear.
Hmm.
And they need to be taught that when we stand up and say no, that means no, and it's not let's talk about it and let's just keep going till you give in.
Right. Right. Yeah. I agree. And I think as young boys, as they are growing into adulthood, even from a young age, need to be taught that. So, Monet, you were going to say, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that there are, verbal and nonverbal cues. I mean, it's body language, it's eye contact, it's, you know, whether they are returning whatever the person is giving,
Hmm.
but it's really just being aware of that person that you're with. But yeah, of course, as soon as they say no, it should be no,
Right.
not, oh, she really didn't mean that, or he really, but it is a gray area.
Yes, it is. And I don't know how to make it less gray. It can't be legislated. So it just, I think, starts with teaching children of both genders how boundaries and how to respect other people's to set their own. The younger that I think people start doing that, the easier it gets as you grow to set and hold your boundaries and honor other people's. So, can you both just really briefly give my listeners some prevention tips for adults, adult women and men, and for children? Because, there's no 100% foolproof method where you could say, if you do this, 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 and this is not going to happen to you. But if you could just give them some ways to maybe decrease the likelihood.
There's no foolproof way, but for parents of children, educating yourself and them so that you are aware of any, new updates or prevention programs. You can join those. You need to understand what child abuse is as well as the signs, but I think it's really about getting involved with other parents in the community to really just come together and knowing what it all encompasses. And then as an adult, or I mean, you could be assaulted at any time, but just being
Yeah.
aware of your surroundings, going with that gut feeling if something doesn't feel right,
Hmm.
and if you are able, having something on yourself to protect yourself. It doesn't have to
Hmm.
be a lethal thing, but something.
Right. So
And
to put space between you and that person.
yeah, yeah. And just not ignoring your gut feeling.
Absolutely. And Krista, anything to add to that?
I'm a huge advocate of teaching children very young the concept of body autonomy,
Hmm.
that they don't have to say yes to any physical touch, so that when they're older, it's much easier to have very, very secure boundaries
Yep.
as far as sharing their body goes. Also, self defense. I think children who are prepared to defend themselves and know what a situation might look like are going to have a lot higher capacity for getting out of the situation.
Hmm.
And another thing is for parents that are uncomfortable, or for adults, if you're uncomfortable about the topic, there are a million resources out there.
Yeah.
Operation Underground Railroad is they have trainings that parents can do with their kids.
Okay.
So you can watch videos about what does it look like to have someone on the internet trying to connect with me. What are
Okay.
the risk factors? And they tell stories of young girls and young boys from their own mouths of what got them trapped. And when you see a peer talking about what happened to them, I
Yes.
think it hits a lot harder than mom saying, I shouldn't do this.
Yes. I agree. All right. And that was Operation Underground Railroad.
Yeah, their website, I think, is ourrescue.org.
Okay, I'm definitely going to include that in the show notes and some other resources. But I wanted to pivot a little bit and talk to each of you individually about your work. Monet, if you could tell me a little bit about the grief path and how that came to be and the work you do there. And then Krista, if you could tell me about Battle to Be, that would be awesome.
Yes, so the grief path was created based on a course that I took through the Grief Recovery Institute just to deal with some of my own lifelong grief that I thought I had dealt with and I had not. And so after I went through the course, it was so evident to me that it was something that was needed by so many people because
Mhm.
grief is not just death. We can grieve our health, we can grieve the changes that we experience in life, from jobs to relationships to divorce to moving, all of these different things, even not having the life that we thought we would have at this point. So I decided to get certified as a grief recovery specialist, and then I formed my business.
Okay.
And what I do is I meet with grievers either in person or online, one on one, and it's a 7-week course where we put in the work. Because while you can go to Grief Share and you can sit with a group of people and share how you're feeling,
Right.
the only way you're going to recover and heal is to do the work and to complete what was left incomplete in that relationship or that situation. And
Okay.
so that's what recovery is about. And so
Okay.
I just support them. Most people just want to be heard.
Hmm.
And so, it's very rewarding to do that.
Awesome. That's awesome. So that's going to be in the show notes. And Krista, talk to me about two things. Number one, your name, Phoenix. And number two, tell me about Battle to Be.
Okay, well, the Phoenix nickname came into play many, many years ago when my house burned down,
Mm.
and I had recently overcome cancer
Oh,
and gotten into a car accident, and I had a
oh,
traumatic brain injury. So I literally had this 3 year span of everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong.
oh my gosh.
And
Oh my
we,
God.
my friends did this fundraiser for us, and they did this whole out of the ashes thing, and it just kind of stuck that no matter what our past is, we can rise above it.
Yes.
So that's actually part of my business is out of the ashes and into your life on fire is
Nice.
kind of how we do that. So, but the business, I have 3 tracks. I work
Okay.
with Battle to Be is my first responders and my military and all my frontline emergency workers.
Okay.
And I do trauma recovery for them. And then the Rise Up Phoenix Academy has a track for victims of human trafficking, domestic violence, and childhood sexual abuse.
Okay.
And then my third track is my normal people who are just really in the middle of a transition period in their life and they don't know where to go and they don't know what to do.
Okay. So with the Battle to Be and the first responders, is that kind of a counseling group or a bunch of different services should just assist them with
We
whatever their trauma is?
It's coaching and consulting from hire
Okay.
to retire and beyond. So literally I work with individuals, groups, and corporations to restructure the way that they look at post-traumatic stress.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me just say that I'm really glad that you are here because that was a lot in a short period
Yeah.
of time. My God.
Wow.
So happy that you're
Wow.
here. And ladies, as we start to wrap this up, if I could just get closing comments from both of you, and that can be about whatever you want about this topic, just what would your last words be to my listeners on this subject? And Krista, your mic's open, so you can go first.
For everybody that doesn't think that this matters or that it's important, there's a statistic that always hits me. 80% of 21-year-olds who reported childhood sexual abuse, and that's
Mm,
those who reported,
right.
meet the criteria for at least one psychological disorder.
Wow.
They are not okay.
They are not okay. Thank you for that. And Monet?
Basically, I would just say that regardless of what you have been through or someone else that you know, it is so important to use your voice because a lot of times these things want to silence us. They want to, you know, tell us that we mean nothing, but your voice is important. Your
Yeah.
voice is important for not only yourself for your healing journey, but also for the next person who's looking at you, who is going to be inspired by your survival.
Yes.
So I would just say use your voice. Don't let anything silence your voice.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you both for that. So, as we come to the end of our time together, I just want to first thank you both for doing the redo with me. And I really, really appreciate you sharing your time, your stories, your advice, your wisdom with me and my listeners. I hope that everybody that hears this when it goes out, if they are in need of help or know somebody that does, can at least hear something encouraging that would encourage them to seek the help they need. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much for the
You're
invite.
welcome. Oh,
Amazing.
Thank you for having us.
oh, you're welcome. So guys, this is for whoever's going to hear this. If you're out there and you need help, like immediate help, if you're in crisis, please call 911. Get the help you need. If you're out there and you hear this and you are the victim of rape, sexual assault, any kind of sexual abuse, there are resources. Sorry about that. I hit the arm for you out there. You can call, there's an organization called RAINN, RAINN. They have a 24/7 hotline. The number is 1-800-656-HOPE or 1-800-656-4673. You can call them and be connected with somebody that can help you. If you're a man who's listening to this and you are the victim of a sexual assault or rape, there are a couple different groups out there. There's a group called 1in6. That's the number 1IN, the number 6.org/helpline. You can go online and chat with someone. And another group is malesurvivor.org. So all of this information will be in the show notes, as well as Krista's and Monaye's contact information with clickable links to their websites, to Monaye's book. All of that will be in the show notes, as well as all of the resources I just named and Operation Underground Railroad. So I always end the show, and I really, really, really want you guys to keep it safe, keep it healthy, and keep it candid.